Hi, this is Richard Workman, and I'll be doing my presentation today on our local utility company, which is called Tacoma Public Utilities, and I'll be discussing their main campus as part of my vulnerabilities assessment. Tacoma Public Utilities actually serves as a main hub for three separate sectors, including power, water, and cyber. I chose the vulnerability assessment framework developed by KMPG to provide a greater picture of what could affect TPU as opposed to a single threat. The main focus of this assessment would allow managers and supervisors at TPU to determine where they would need to best place vital resources in the offensive response and recovery and mitigation. This is the outside view of the main building of Tacoma Public Utilities. As you can see, it has 4 stories, and on this side, it has a main entrance with 1 guard shack. Another reason that I chose TPU was that I had the opportunity to intern there for a short while and help them develop their continuity of operations plan and employee response handbook. The main function of the main campus at TPU is to provide communication and coordination within the entire service area, which is pretty extensive and covers 2 counties. Between the various departments and divisions, TPU serves roughly about 300,000 people over 180 square miles. TPU also owns and operates 6 separate hydroelectric plants with 7 dams on 4 different rivers. It owns and operates a small rail line and its own internet and cable television company. The internet and television company pretty much operates within the local Tacoma area and suburbs. Another key overarching function of TPU is that it coordinates several different departments with overlapping functions for each division. You've got billing, you've got operations, utility, technology services, which basically serves as their IT department, and you have communications, which allows for the coordination of operations between various service crews and repair teams. Benefits of having these various departments performing overlapping functions is controlling cost, which for a public utilities company is pretty significant. Briefly going over my particular vulnerability assessment and the methodology used for the VAF is basically determining what you're going to need to perform functions, identify those threats and hazards which could affect that infrastructure, and prioritize the minimum amount of functions or type of functions needed to conduct operations. I kind of went in a different direction a little bit. I identified the functions first, then what you would need to complete those functions, and then those hazards which could affect those functions. And as this slide shows, you have several different functions which are absolutely critical in the operation of TPU. You have billing, you have communication, cybersecurity, customer support, and facility security. And these particular critical functions are absolutely necessary in the event of an overwhelming hazard or catastrophic event, which would allow TPU to continue operations as best as it's capable under the circumstances. Billing function is pretty critical to a small company like TPU because you got to make sure that the money is kept coming in. You've got to keep track of where the money goes. You've got to maintain contracts with your vendors and supply chain. And you also have to, while you're conducting billing, is to protect your customer and client data, especially during a crisis, because you're going to need to keep track of that. However, in the event that the entire situation is expanding beyond TPU's immediate capability of returning service, say like a catastrophic failure like an earthquake or maybe a massive extreme storm, then TPU would be obligated to suspend billing practices for that time because if they can't provide a service, they can't charge for it. Communication function is absolutely vital as well because it allows you to communicate with not just your repair teams and maintenance crews, but your managers and supervisors need to communicate with each other. And you have your various departments which also need to provide interdepartmental assessments for damages, outages, and things of that nature. And this way you can update personnel and receive feedback and be able to transmit data as quickly as possible. Cybersecurity, which is primarily provided by Utilities Technology Services in their department, which is basically the IT function for any major corporation, and is pretty much tasked with defending against internal and external electronic threats, hackers, people looking to steal data. They also need to focus on protecting proprietary information within TPU, such as contracts, vendor applications, billing, client information, employee information. Customer support is important because during an outage or a disruption of any sort, you're always going to have some customers, quite a few actually, calling in to see, how soon is this going to get fixed? And it's up to customer support to be able to be upfront about that information, relaying a sense of immediacy and transparency. And if it's possible, on a local small level, they may be able to solve a problem. Facility security, for the most part, is maintaining the physical security of the buildings, the perimeter, stairwells, both internal and external. You've got your elevators and your customer lobbies, your offices, and your outbuildings, which also house the service areas for vehicles and equipment. It's also the purview of security to ensure that only the right people need to go to the places they need to go, securing sensitive areas. Elevators that go all the way to the fourth floor are only for executive purposes, and I found that out. Security also needs to ensure that customers and staff are able to evacuate a building in case of like a fire or an earthquake or a terrorist threat, such as a bomb. In addition to the other functions, we also have power, water, monitoring, and support, which basically coordinates efforts to repair outages and disruptions, provide equipment, and basically troubleshoot those situations as they arise. At TPU, you have several ways of communicating, transmitting data. You have radios, telephones for interdepartmental communications, you have cell phones, you have microwave communications, sonic communications, which is basically fiber optic transmission lines. You have satellite phones for some of your remote repair crews. And again, most of the minimal required infrastructure serves most of the critical functions, because without communication, you can't coordinate repair efforts, you can't transmit data, you can't do billing, you can't do any sort of communication. So a lot of electronic equipment and protocols are required to maintain operations at TPU. Security at TPU is pretty much limited to chain link fences and external walls. One main guard shack, which is manned by one person. You have an internal guard desk at the main lobby. All open air external walkways, stairwells, elevators, and hallways are all monitored by closed-circuit television. And each of the doors in the department, or within several departments within any particular division, they all have key card entry, which is like basically what you would see like on an employee badge. Some of the vulnerabilities with the infrastructure employed at TPU include possibility of information or data transmission lines being jammed. We have cellular that can be intercepted, and you have data theft. You can either carry a flash drive. You have denial of service attacks, which can overwhelm your systems. You can have people entering through places that they're not supposed to go, and you have employees failing to maintain protocol as far as entrance is concerned, because I know on several occasions I've piggybacked without my badge on because somebody decided that I look like I belong there, so I could just walk right through a door. That needs to change. The following are among the most likely possible threats or hazards that may face TPU. You've got hostile customers, people are upset about their bill, they've got an axe to grind, so to speak. You have domestic terrorism, somebody decides they want to take out a substation, or actually carry out a threat against the main campus itself. You have riots and protests, such as May Day, spilling over from Seattle into Tacoma. You have earthquakes, the possibility of fires throughout the building and the outbuildings, pandemics, for the most part, basically influenza driven. If enough population is affected by the flu, that can affect your operations. So basically, what I would recommend is the doubling of computer firewalls, password changes, the adaptation of private networks, which basically creates a tunnel from what you're working with to a third party to what you're looking to work with. So you're kind of like hiding yourself when you're online. My own company uses such a technique when we're working remotely from home. Then you also have a multi-layer defense, which basically boils down to the authentication of a user, bad data injection defense, such as like protection against malware. And then you have only authorized like flash drives. I know a lot of people bring some from Office Depot, and you don't know what they're bringing into the company in order to use them. So I think they need to be authorized by the IT department and the security department. And this basically boils down to the education of employees about security protocols and practices. But overall, I think the security for the facility as it is, against the vulnerabilities that could possibly affect Tacoma Public Utilities, it's gone as far as it possibly can based on the budget that it has to work with and the probability of certain circumstances actually occurring are limited. So I would say that Tacoma Public Utilities has done a fairly decent job of protecting itself. Thank you very much for your time.